We're at section 7. We're section 7.
End of section 6.
Oh yeah, okay. End of section 6. So we're learning Likkutei Torah, volume 2, for Parshas Re'eh. We're on page 82 in the Hebrew, end of section 6. על אף זאת, הרי מאחר שהאדם בא במגע עם גשמיות הקשורה בחומריות, אסור לו לסמוך על עצמו, גם כשהוא רואה מפרסת פרסה, ודרוש סימן נוסף, מעלת גרה, ללעוס, לבדוק ולברר שוב ושוב. So he says it's not enough just that we are balanced properly between the left and the right, that which is a sign that we've gone beyond our natural tendencies. And the only thing that can bring you beyond your natural tendencies, as we saw yesterday, is Torah itself. So that's not enough. That's not the only sign that's needed. And we said that in a person it means, it's not just that I'm divided left and right like this, but I'm also in and out. My inside has been affected just as much as my outside. It's also necessary to find another sign. What's the other sign? The other sign is regurgitation. And that is a sign for the fact that you need to ruminate. You need to think.
Conjugate. You go over it time after time.
What was the guy's name? Harriet? The guy from Scotland. Something Harriet. A famous author. All things great and small. All creatures great and small. All this, all that. It's famous, what do you call an animal doctor, no? How do you say an animal doctor? I forgot. Starts with a V, no? Veterinarian, thank you. This famous veterinarian from Scotland, whose name is, he was in the RAF in World War II, and he wrote books about his veterinary practice that people love. They're so human and good. Something Harriet. Last name is Harriet. How could you not know? You're from almost Scotland. Anyway, okay. So, he writes ruminate. And what does that mean? It means that you have to regurgitate. You have to think about it again and again and again, check again and again to make sure that you can really trust yourself. Because when you come in contact with reality, you also have to, meaning you have the mafresa parsa, the split hoof, meaning you're coming in touch with reality, you're affected by it. So you also have to be super critical about whether you're really balanced or not, whether it's really affected you on the inside or not. Section 7. ההוראה מן האמור לגבי עבודה בפועל, והרי הדבר ניתן ללמוד ממטה למעלה ומעלה למטה היא. So, what does this mean practically speaking? And we can learn from above to below and from below to above. כשם שכאשר אדם ניגש לאכול מן הבהמה, עליו לבדוק אם יש לה סימני טהרה, ואם לאו, אסור לו לאכול ממנה. כך בכל עניין בעולם הזה, שאדם מתכונן לעשות עליו לבדוק את הסימנים. It's in the same way that when we come to eat something, we have to check that it has the right signs, that it's kosher. So with anything that we come to do in this world, you need to check the signs. What does that mean? עליו להיות בטוח שאינו עושה זאת למלא תאוות נפשו. On the one hand, he has to, first of all, be sure that even though he thinks this is, on the one hand, he thinks this is a mitzvah, this is something that he really needs to do, that Hashem wants him to do, he still has to check himself and criticize and see whether he's really doing it for the sake of the mitzvah or whether he's doing it to fulfill his cravings. And so the person says, I need to go to this wedding. Why do I need to go to this wedding? Because I need to make the chassan and kala happy. I'm coming to honor their parents. I'm coming to this. But really, I can't not come because they set it up this way also. Because they have such a good smorgasbord, or whatever you call that thing. Before the wedding, I have to eat from that. I'll only come for 5 minutes. But 5 minutes is enough for me to make sure that I taste from everything that's there. So that's like a common thing. But there's also other things. Even when a person is doing something that he thinks is a mitzvah, he shouldn't refrain from it because he also has a craving there. Like in this case, it's a sudas mitzvah. it's still a mitzvah to be there. You shouldn't say, I'm not going. You should be aware though, that there are cravings involved. And even when it seems to him that his inside is like his outside, that he's really doing it for the right reason, he still should look at himself closely again and make sure that that's really the case. Okay, so that was regarding the kosher signs of animals in our parsha. Now he's going to turn to Elul. And we already learned something about Elul last week, and here's another one. Section 8. בליקוטי תורה מופיע משל להסברת ההבדל בין חודש אלול לבין תשרי. So Likkutei Torah, the Alter Rebbe gives us the famous mashal, the famous parable about the difference between the month of Elul and the first 10 days of Tishrei. אלול נמשל לתקופה בה נמצא המלך בשדה לפני בוא העירה, ותשרי לתקופה בה נמצא המלך בהיכלו. So in Elul, the king is outside, he's in the field, it's before he enters the city. And in Tishrei, it's after he goes into his chambers, into his throne room. בשעה שהמלך נמצא בהיכלו אין אפשרות לכל להיכנס אליו, ויש צורך להכנות רבות לכך. ואילו כשהמלך יוצא לשדה אל העם, הרי למרות שאינו מופיע שם במלוא תפארתו וגדולתו כבהיכל מלכותו, ישנו דווקא משום כך היתרון בעובדה שכל אחד רשאי לדבר בעצמו אל המלך, והמלך מצידו מקבל כל אחד בסבר פנים יפות ומקבל בקשתו. So the difference, as everybody understands, is that when the king is in the chambers, in his palace, not everybody can go in. You have to have special preparations and so on and so forth. On the other hand, when he's out in the field, so even though he's not in all his splendor and all his grandeur, still anybody can come to him and everybody can see him, and he accepts everybody with a smile. Okay, and he it says also, and he not only smiles at them, but he also grants their wish. באלול מופיע הקדוש ברוך הוא לפני כל איש ישראל. On Elul, so the meaning of the parable is that God appears before every Jew. ובאפשרותו של כל אחד למסור את בקשתו. And every person can give him his request. He can write it down, he can say it out loud, whatever he wants. כפי שהדבר מוסבר בליקוטי תורה באריכות. As explained in Likkutei Torah in length. ברם, מובן שבשעה שהמלך נמצא בשדה, יש צורך בזהירות יתרה, שכמאחר שאדם שרואה במעמדו ומצבו, ואם זאת מופיע לפני המלך, מקבל בקשות, ויתר על כן, הוא מראה לו בסבר פנים יפות. עלול זה לטעות בראשו שרצוי לו להישאר במצבו, והוכרע לכך שגם במצבו מופיע לפניו המלך. But he says, but there is a word of caution. The word of caution is that in Elul, you still have not prepared yourself for the king. It's not Rosh Hashanah yet. So you're going about your regular business. And you're still stuck where you're stuck. You haven't made any good new resolutions to change, even though you should start from Elul. He says, but the problem is that you're starting, and Elul just started, and it's going to start on Shabbos, and you feel, wow, I'm with the king in the field now. So if the king is here with me in the field, that's a sign that I don't need to change. He likes me the way I am. It's true, he does like you the way, he loves you the way you are. But that's not a reason for you not to change. When the king is in his chambers, then there's no question. You know that in order to see the king, you have to prepare yourself. There's no simple way to get in there. Only a person who's made all the required preparations is allowed into the king's throne room. What does that mean for us? For us, it means that he's a person who fulfills the entire Torah, according to his ability. But he's completely devoted to this program. וגם אותו מכניסים רק במידה שהוא ראוי לה. לשון הגמרא, ראוי לחצר לחצר, ראוי לגינה לגינה, ראוי לביתן לביתן. From Megillah Esther, we learned, the Gemara tells us, that every person that came to see Achashverosh, even though it was a banquet, supposedly he was open to everyone, still it wasn't that way. That there were people who were worthy of entering the garden, and there were people who were worthy of entering only the yard, and there were people who were worthy of entering the throne room where the king was. Even though he wasn't in his palace, it was outside. It wasn't a throne room. It was like some kind of temporary dwelling that they built for him. But every person according to what he's suited for. אך בשעה שהמלך בשדה אפשר בגלות להתאפס לטעות, ויש על כן צורך בזהירות יתר. But when the king is in the field, you might feel that these restrictions don't obligate you. And so you might think that, first of all, I don't need to change. And secondly, not only do I not need to change, but it's not according, meaning I see the king anyway, all the same, regardless of what I'm worthy of. So that you have to be careful about with the month of Elul. Okay? We'll finish tomorrow, God willing.
Okay, sorry for the bell again.